Juneteenth is an annual holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. The name Juneteenth combines the words June and 19th to honor a historical date.
On June 19th, 1865, a Union general named Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas to read a proclamation called Order Number 3 to inform the good people of Texas that, as per the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, all enslaved people were free. It let people know that there would be absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between masters, former masters, and former slaves. It said you will now have an official relationship between former master and slave as employer and hired labor.
More than 250,000 slaves in Texas had a right to freedom. The message, however, came more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863.
The Emancipation Proclamation freed enslaved people in the Confederacy. It did not deal with those who were enslaved in Union territory.
The Emancipation Proclamation did not end slavery in the U.S. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, except as a punishment for crime in 1865. The proclamation was intended to cripple the Confederacy's use of slaves in the Civil War effort. Under the measure, if a seceded state chose to return to the Union before January 1st, the state would not have to make slavery illegal. But if the state refused to return, then enslaved people would be free.
Free labor is what this country is built on. Enslavers did not want to free their slaves.
The freedom promised to slaves in rebellious states through the proclamation depended on the Union military defeating the Confederacy. For the enslaved, it turned into a war for freedom. Almost 200,000 black soldiers and sailors served for the Union.
The figurehead is always the story of Gordon Granger. They're bringing the story, the reality that, yes, the Civil War is over and the Confederacy has lost. But that doesn't mean that Texans, white Texans, wanted to give up the bondage, the free labor.
Slaves fought to secure their own liberty. In the South, slaves had to struggle for freedom through self-liberation or intervention from Union forces.
There were beatings, there were lynchings, shootings as people tried to take their own freedom. You could only celebrate so much. They were de facto enslaved, and many stayed in bondage because of threat of violence.
Juneteenth was originally recognized in Texas on June 19, 1866, before spreading to other states. It typically included prayer services,
we are free at last.
Inspirational messages, stories from former slaves, food, dance, and much more.
Initially, when we talk about the first Juneteenth celebrations in 1866, there's a rejoicing. But because of the oppression, Jim Crow era, the rise of white supremacy on the back of black freedom, you had a suppression of those exuberant expressions of joy at freedom. But as you moved into the civil rights era, you started to see a sense of black pride and black power emerging. And through that, you had this rebirth of the celebration of Juneteenth in the 20th and then subsequently in the 21st century today. Juneteenth should be recognized because it is an historical moment. It is not just for Texans. It is for Californians. It's for people everywhere. You don't have to be a person of color to celebrate Juneteenth either. You just have to be a person who wants to celebrate true liberty